handsome friend.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're here again, week 8, episode number 8. Dinner's going to be a little late tonight. And so we're really happy that you're here to join us. I'm John Bailey from 2 Dads with Baggage.
I'm Patty Wary from Dinner's Going to Be a Little Late Tonight.
And for those of you that don't know, Patty and I have been friends since we were 16 years old. And we've stayed friends through all these many decades of friendship. And yeah, literally 40 years. That's a long time to be friends with someone. So I'm thrilled to be doing this with you, and people seem to like it. So that's a good thing. So Patty, what are we making this week?
What are we making this week? We are making Moroccan lamb chops with red pepper mashed potatoes and tomato. Let me see if I can say this right. Agrodolce.
Very well. And what did we make last week? Because I know you wanted to talk about that.
Well, let's just recap real quick. Last week we made sake salmon with asparagus and spinach. It was super healthy and light. And not going to lie, Scott ate the leftovers for lunch today. Is that scary? I would ask that every week. Is that scary? Anyway, it's really tasty. We did our own twist on a recipe that I'd made a few times. And one of the great things was that Tipsy Sake offered us a discount code for our viewers. So if you want to try their sake tasting kit, you can use the code Dinner's a Little Late. John taught us all about how sake is a lot like wine, and there's different varietals, and there's appetizer sake and entree sake and dessert sake. So that was really fun and tasty. But this week we're going a totally different way. We're going away from Asia. We're going to Morocco. But it didn't exactly start in Morocco, did it, John? This story actually starts in Dana Point.
So yes, it does. We were climbing the walls, going crazy with COVID and having to stay home in the lockdown. And so we started to research places that we could go safely, that were nearby, that we could take a road trip to. And we live in San Diego. So we decided on the Monarch Beach Inn in Dana Point, California, which is about an hour and 15 minutes up the road from us. And it's just gorgeous there. If you ever have the opportunity to go to Dana Point, it's so beautiful and kind of undiscovered. So it's like quintessential California beaches and sailing and boating and surfing and bicycling and all those beautiful outdoor things. So we went to the Monarch Beach Resort, sorry. And we went to dinner at a Veo restaurant. Oh, look, very nice. This is not a commercial for the Monarch Beach Resort, although we both love it.
Oh,
so we go to a Veo restaurant, and I am served this Moroccan lamb, this rack of lamb. And it was the most delicious dish, so beautifully plated. And I loved it. I fell in love with it. So I asked the chef if he would share his recipe. And he did. So thank you to Chef Gregory Noble from the Monarch Beach Resort and a Veo restaurant, because today we're making his recipe, modified for just the smaller family serving sizes rather than the banquet sizes he's used to making it in. It was kind of funny looking at the recipe, because there were, in some cases, it was to make for the masses, but we're just making it for 4.
Yeah, I gotta drain my potatoes real quick, because one of the
go ahead, bring those potatoes. So
what we're making today is those mashed potatoes. So I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah. So and mine are still cooking, my potatoes. So this Moroccan rack of lamb was so flavorful with those Moroccan spices that are so exotic. And it was served on a bed of mashed potatoes with roasted bell peppers mixed in, which we didn't do, and then finished off with this delicious tomato agrodolce, which is kind of sweet and sour. It's actually an Italian dish, agrodolce, and you can serve it on pasta and a number of other things. It's got vinegar and honey and tomatoes and other stuff, and chef modified it to go with this lamb, and it is damn good, is all I'm saying. So let's hope we can recreate it, because I'm in love with this food.
All right, so my lamb is actually already in the oven, because we're a little unsure of the exact time. Those of you who cook rack of lamb, I love rack of lamb. It is a family favorite. I make a really simple rack of lamb pretty much every Christmas dinner, and I'm hoping that in December we'll maybe recreate our favorite Christmas dinner. But in the meantime, so we just got one rack. John's going to talk to you about where he got his rack.
I'm talking to you about my rack.
I'll talk about your rack. Sorry. So mine is already in the oven, and it's has a rub on it, and it called for, okay, how do I pronounce this? Where is that bad boy? Where's
Chermoula.
Chermoula. And John and I were like, Chermoula, where the heck do we find Chermoula? Spice rub. And I always told John, I'm not in San Diego. I don't have all these nice farmers markets. We're pretty limited here in the Coachella Valley. So I said, I'm just gonna make my own. So we have all the ingredients, and it was super fun. I don't know about you, but I love doing all the spices. So we put together my own rub, and you made yours own rub too, right, John? You ended up making.
Well, so I was convinced, as Patty said, that I could go to the market and buy Chermoula spice, and guess what? No, none of the markets had it. So I made it too, and it's a combination of a number of spices. And I don't know if you can see there; it's really beautiful and colorful. All these reds and browns. And yellows all mixed together. It's a combination of, like, I don't know, 9 or 10 different spices.
Yeah.
And I have it in my mom's mortar and pestle bowl from her kitchen that I grew up with, and I ended up getting to keep it after she passed away. So we are both making our mix of Chermoula spices, and this is too much. It makes too much, and so. What you're going to end up with is some leftover, and it stores for how long, Patty?
We're going to talk about spice storage in a little while, but probably at least a year. But
okay. So I'm going to show you how to rub this spice onto the lamb, and Patty's already done that. So let's talk about the lamb first. Full disclosure, I'm a brand ambassador for Purdue Farms, and Purdue allows us to sample their meats and cook with them and talk about it on shows like this. Nonetheless, I am convinced that Purdue Farms has some of the best meats in the country, specifically because they own Neiman Ranch. And Neiman Ranch, if you know that brand, you can buy it in the grocery store, or you can go to PurdueFarms.com and order it. They have amazing cuts of meat, and this is their rack of lamb. And I'm going to show it to you because it's Frenched already. And so it's all ready for you to bake in the oven to roast, and then to cut into slices, and you end up with these beautiful little baby tomahawk lamb chops that make this dish the presentation of this dish so beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to take some spoonfuls of this mixed up Chermoula. I have to say that. And I'm actually putting quite a lot. So I'm putting like 2 tablespoons of it onto the top of this lamb. Another thing to remember, when you put the lamb in the pan, try and get a rack underneath it so that the drippings drip down underneath, which are really good, and you can save to make it au jus later. But you don't want the lamb sitting in the juices and the fats and oils while it's cooking. So you're putting the rack of lamb on the rack, rack of lamb on the rack, and you're putting it bones down, meat side up. And it's got that fatty layer on top that's facing up. And what's so delicious is that that's going to melt away in the baking process, and it's going to flavor the meat and make it taste like so buttery-licious. So I am right now, I'm literally rubbing that spice into the top of this meat. And so it's like some of it's spilling over the edge, which is fine. It doesn't all have to stay on top. But I'm really kind of patting it down and rubbing it in, because it's going to make this amazingly delicious crust. So when you take it out after it's been baking in the oven, it's going to have this kind of crispy, really super flavorful Oh my God, that smells so good. So I know you're going to talk about the spices that are in this, so I won't spoil the surprise for later, right? You're going to talk about that?
Yeah.
Let's just say that there's a lot of really flavorful and aromatic spices in here, and yum. That's all I can say. So amazing. All right, so now I'm ready to pop it in the oven, because now it looks like this. Can you see it? It kind of slipped. Can you see it? And it's, okay, so I'm not going to be able to show it to you.
There it is.
There it is. Okay, so it's very reddish brown because of the because of that chermoula crust. And now I'm putting it in the oven to bake. And it's going to bake, do you remember, Patty?
I put mine at 30 minutes, and I'm at about 5 minutes out.
Yeah. So it's at 350 degrees, and it's going to bake for 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. And obviously, the longer you leave it, the more done it will be. I like mine medium rare, although some people like theirs medium well. And so, just add 5-minute increments for every additional, if you want medium rare, it'd be like 25 minutes. Medium is like 30, medium well, 35, etc. You can do the math.
I've got my trusty meat thermometer. I'm going to check it out. It might take a little longer than that. So, John, before we went on the air, John was saying how hot it was. I just want you to know, according to this meat thermometer, my kitchen is 90 degrees right now. Maybe the same.
I'm outside, Patty. You had a hot week.
122.
No worries.
Play. So
it's only 90 here today.
Burr. I'm going to check my one. So you're
there are places in the country today where it's snowing.
Yeah, what's
my potatoes are now done, and I think we're going to talk about the potatoes in a minute. But first, we're going to make the tomato agrodolce, which actually it sounds really fancy, but it's super easy. It's super easy, like a lot of Italian food is. It's just a few very, very fresh, flavorful ingredients combined together and cooked simply. So agrodolce, literally, according to Chef Gregory Noble in his recipe, is Roma tomatoes. Now, why do we use Roma tomatoes? Patty, do you know?
Because the recipe said to?
Yes, that's true. And the recipe said to use Roma tomatoes because Roma tomatoes are the ones that are more meaty. Yes. They're the kind that you cook with because there's more flesh to the tomato and not so much seeds and pulp. And so when you cook them, you get a heartier dish. If you cooked with table cut tomatoes or salad tomatoes, you'd end up with a very watery dish. So we use Roma tomatoes. So it's Roma tomatoes, red vinegar, some Fresno chilies. Now, I don't cook a lot with Fresno chilies, and Patty and I had this conversation as we planned the show today. Fresno chili, what does that look like? And we were both trying to remember. So this is a Fresno chili. It looks kind of like a jalapeno, but it's not, and it's red. This is a jalapeno. So here's the difference. You can see, now this is a small jalapeno, and they do get bigger, but a jalapeno is very oval shaped and round, and a Fresno chili has a very flat top. So that's one way you can tell, but almost always when you buy them, Fresno chilies are red, and jalapenos are green. So Fresno chilies, honey, red pepper, and raisins. So you can see like there's this sweet and sour combination of flavors in the agrodolce that makes it so delicious.
Do you have the honey bear? I love the honey bear.
I do have the honey bear, but I put it in a very presentable little cup. So
I did too. I just wanted to show the honey bear.
We have gotten that honey bear kind of honey since the kids were little. Yeah. Just to entertain them.
It's cute.
So I'm going to combine all these things in one sauté pan, and that's it. And then we're just going to cook it until it's done. So it's actually very, very easy to make and very delicious. So there went the honey. Here goes the Fresno chilies. So I chop them into little pieces. So there's the Fresnos.
Chili check.
Here's the golden onions. The golden onions.
No golden onions.
Golden raisins. I don't know why golden raisins, but it makes the color of this agrodolce is very vibrantly red, and it looks delicious when it's on top of the lamb, which is kind of this crusty brown color, and then the potatoes, which turn out to be kind of this beautiful orange. So it's really a cool looking dish.
I think golden raisins have a different flavor than regular raisins, don't you?
I have no idea. Does anyone know that? If you know, please comment if you're watching. do golden raisins taste different than brown raisins? And I'll bet you they do. Like one's like Thompson seedless and one's red. I mean, but honestly, if you did a blind tasting, Patty, and you tasted a green grape and a red grape, would you be able to tell me which was which?
Yes, I would. I'm kind of a grape connoisseur, not going to lie.
You're a grape connoisseur.
I love grapes.
This is something I did not know about you.
How did you not know this? I love those really, really big ones that you can peel.
So the other thing this calls for is salt, a half a teaspoon. So I'm just going to eyeball a half a teaspoon of salt. Right. And we're just going to let this simmer on here. And Patty, now it's time for me to go and drain my potatoes. So would you please entertain our guests while I run over and do that?
Entertain our guests. I'm going to let them know that I've taken my lamb out of the oven, and honestly, it doesn't look that different than when it went in. You can see, but you can see, hopefully I can do this without dropping it. Whoop, hey, the crust has darkened on that front end, and I put my thermometer in, and according to my thermometer, this is done, or maybe a little on the rare side, but I'm going to tell you a secret. Since it is 1:15, 1:20, and we're not going to eat this till dinner time. Another thing my family has learned, because we do love lamb, and my husband usually buys like 4 racks, so we have lots of leftovers. If you have a rack that's a little underdone, when you go to reheat it, then it gets just right. So then it doesn't get overcooked when you reheat it. So my kids home for lunch, we had a discussion. We all decided we're going to go a little bit on this rarer side for my rack because we won't be eating it till tonight. So it smells great. It looks great. I think I still need to put my red pepper flakes. Did you put the red pepper flakes in the oven? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't, but I'm going to do that right now.
And while you're doing that, I'm doing a mash of my potatoes because it's my favorite thing to do. And this used to be my job when I was a little kid. My mom would say, okay, I need your help. And I would run into the kitchen and I would get to mash the potatoes and take out all my aggressions on these little potatoes while I mashed them up. And it was such a good feeling.
Well, John,
sometimes we actually whip them and I don't get to take out my, Also, okay.
This is my grandmother's. Also
from my mom. This is the aggression. This is what I took out my aggressions as a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Look at this, has that old black kind of handle. Yeah, we just don't make things like this anymore. All right, so I get to smash mine too. John, what are you cooking the agrodolce on? Medium?
Yes. Okay. Because you don't want it to burn, you just want it to combine.
Okay.
It's bubbling and all those flavors are combining right now. And the tomatoes will cook down. And we did a coarse chop on the tomatoes so that the sauce after we're done making it would remain sort of chunky. And then when you put it, it will look really beautiful when you put it on top of the lamb. So yeah, it's kind of like making a type of salsa in a way.
Yeah. So while you mash your potatoes, shall I talk about my peppers?
Well,
or do you want to hang on?
No, you should talk about your peppers, and I should make the peppers because.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, you start. That's right.
Okay, so in order to make the mashed potatoes with red peppers mixed in, you have to roast the peppers, and you can buy them roasted too. And no judgment there. You can buy them in a jar already roasted. And just drain them, and you could use them the same way, but we're making our own. So I bought red peppers, I cut them in half, and I seeded them. So I took off the stem and the cap, and I took the seeds out of the middle, cut in half, and I'm gonna put them on a pan with the cut side down and the skin side up. And I'm just gonna broil them, literally broil them in the oven until they turn black. Now that sounds weird, I know, but that's how you do this. You want to char them on the top and have them turn black. And afterwards, we'll put it in a plastic bag so that they sweat. Patty, why don't you show us what happens? I'm going to put mine in the oven, and you're going to pick it up from taking it out of the oven.
Oh, yeah. So mine have been in my plastic bag sweating for a while, and they broiled for about 10 or 12 minutes. It's definitely something you want to watch. And I love doing these. This is one of those really fun cooking things. Now, normally I would do this over the sink. So this is going to make a huge mess. Maybe I'll do it like this. So you can see that it's all charred.
Yeah, that looks perfect.
Yeah, and you can just peel it. It just peels right off. So satisfying. Like, I don't know.
So this is the same method that you can use to make chili rellenos when you take Anaheim chilies. Now, I actually char them on the gas grill by putting them directly on the burners and charring them. But you can do it the same way. You just don't cut them in half. You leave them whole, which means once they're charred on one side, you turn them over and char the other side. But that's chili rellenos. We'll make that another day.
Oh, yeah.
So your skin just comes right off?
So easy. And this is a great, you can use roasted peppers on all sorts of recipes. One thing that we like to do is sandwiches like paninis, and maybe with some Havarti cheese, a nice chicken breast, some pesto on the bun or on the bread.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
And then one of these bad boys just sliced right on top of it. And it's okay if, there's still a little skin on the edge. That's all right. It's not the end of the world. You can kind of pick it off.
When they're starting to blacken.
Good.
Hey, so I want to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
Do you have any pans, metal pans, that when you put them in the oven, they go like this, wonk?
Oh, yeah, like the new one I used today to broil these peppers. What's up with that?
Why did that happen?
I don't know. I was thinking because they were cheap.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe we have cheap pans. But I have 2 pans that do this. And when you put it in the oven, after it just gets a little bit hot, it goes, mwah. And then so if you're trying to cook something that's got a little bit of liquid, everything runs down to the side.
Yeah, and you can hear it. You can hear it pop in the oven, right? Maybe because they're thin. My older, heavier ones that are disgusting and I wouldn't show you, don't do that.
We need a bakeware sponsor, Patty. We need a bakeware sponsor to say, I would love to send you some pans that don't go wonk in the oven when you put them in, right?
Yeah, so if you're out there, if you're watching.
Who's out there? Calphalon, somebody else.
Yeah.
Help us out, please.
So are we at a spot, John, where I can tell my Monarch Beach Resort story?
Yeah, go ahead, because.
Okay. And then and don't forget, I've got a wine pairing for you too. But first I want to talk, I have a little anecdote, because John and I were talking when we were doing this recipe. We're like, lamb, people love it or hate it. So let us know if you're a hater or a lover. If you've never tried it, go for it. It's delicious. And this is just a lovely cut too. It's super tender. So, some old school lamb was gamey, lamb was tough. This is my favorite. But my father hated lamb. Hated it so much, my mother was never allowed to cook it, wouldn't even let it in the house. So when I became a grown-up, here's the cooking story again, and discovered I could cook lamb, I was like, whoa. So my Monarch Beach Resort story takes place 2 years ago. My husband is a contractor, and his company was building a beach club, remodeling the dining room. Monarch Beach Resort has its own private beach. This is like a 5-star resort, you guys. This is like the best place in the world. So my husband's company was working on this beach club at the restaurant. The remodel was going slowly. Asked my husband to come in to save the day. So we live about 2 hours from the Monarch Beach Resort. So they put us up at the resort from Father's Day to July 3rd. We lived at the Monarch Beach Resort. My poor husband would get up very early every morning. It was about a 10-minute drive to the club. And he would get up and go to work all day, and I would sit by the pool. And I had lunch at that restaurant, Aveo, pretty much every day. And it was just like, it was like being Eloise at the plaza. So, but one of the funny things that I always remember is, well, first of all, one of the wonderful things they did for my husband was, since he was there to work, he does call this the most expensive business trip he's ever been on. Every morning after a few days, they realized that this guy was getting up, and there's only valet parking. So there's no self parking. So he would get up and he'd be like, yeah, I need that car, the one with the logo on it. After a few days, he would walk down there. He didn't have to call for his car. He would just walk out, and it would be sitting there ready to go, keys in, engine on, water bottle and banana sitting there for him. So that's just the level of service. But my favorite story is they're, again, 5-star resort. There's no refrigerators in the room. There's no ice makers in the hallway. So if you want ice, you have to call for for them to bring you ice. And of course, we brought a lot of wine with us that we wanted to keep chilled. So every day I would call for ice, and they would bring the ice on a silver tray in a silver ice bucket. And they wouldn't take the buckets away until you asked them. Totally. So they wouldn't take them away until you asked them to. So, and I didn't realize that at first. So at one point I had like 3 silver ice buckets lined up on the dresser in the room. I was just like, and Scott would come home and I'd be, I love this place. Slow down your job. Don't finish it too soon. And so I got the shirt. I love it. It's magical. So, and I know
that resort is amazing. And here's one of the reasons we chose to go there a couple of weeks ago with our family during COVID to stay at a hotel, which was, you know, I mean, like some people might not want to do that, but here's the thing. I did a lot of research and they have it down at the Monarch Beach Resort. So I'm telling you, like, masks, they are required. They had screens up between the front desk people and you when you're checking in. They asked you if you wanted valet, because you could say, I don't want valet because you don't want someone else getting in your car. But everywhere we went, there were complimentary masks, there were hand sanitizer stations, and there were people stationed throughout the resort to say, hey, you're a little too close, especially if you're cool. Like, I'm sorry, it's a little too close. Let me help you move your chair over so that you can maintain your distance. And everything they did was just on it. When we got to the room to check in, there was a seal on the door that we had to break in order to enter our own room to indicate that we were breaking this sanitary seal that the maid service had completely scoured the room. So really, we felt very, very safe while we were there. And I would recommend, actually on the blog, I put on twodadswithbaggage.com, I put together a checklist. If you decide to go on a road trip and take your family on a road trip, what are the things to consider? What are the questions to ask? What should you be thinking about as you plan a trip? Not only when you're in the car on the road, like, do I have to stop for the restroom? And will that be safe? And where will I stop? To what are some of the things that the hotel is offering? So anyway, some things to think about. Hey, how's your agrodolce coming?
Good. Good.
Mine's done.
I think mine's just about, yeah.
It looks really jammy. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, it's kind of steamy. But it's like tomato jam, and it's kind of got this thick consistency. But honestly, it looks like, I don't know if you ever made jam, but and it smells so good. Okay, I think my peppers are going to be black, black, black. How about yours? Are you done with your peppers?
Mine are peeled. I'm nervous because I'm going to use my immersion blender. I'm going to break up these peppers. We're going to blend them, and I'm afraid that there's going to be pepper spraying all over.
Okay, check it. So how long was that? Like less than 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And here they are, completely blackened. And now I'm going to put them in a plastic bag like Patty did. And she's going to do her next gig, which is to blend them, right, Patty?
I'm afraid. Do I have to?
What are you afraid of?
I only used my immersion blender once. I don't even know if I'm doing it right.
Well, you're going to find out.
Yes, I'll find out.
It may splatter all over that beautiful kitchen.
Turn it on. Is it on? No, it's not even turning on. I may have to go another route.
Okay. And I'm taking these peppers, which are blackened on the top, and they're still red, fleshy on the inside, and I'm putting them in this Ziploc bag so that they can sweat, which is what it's called, sweat. So just the fact that they're steaming themselves is what will make the skin slip off.
Yes. I don't have to use this thing. So I can grab my blender.
Am I frozen or are you?
I'm not frozen.
Maybe it was me.
It was you. I could grab my blender real fast. I'm afraid to use that thing. I can't. It's not turning on, and I don't want to mess with it. I might cut off.
Yeah. Why don't you get your blender?
I'll get my blender.
So while she's doing that, some of the ingredients that go into the mashed potatoes are. So we've used 3 to 4 very large russet potatoes. Now, when I went to the market, they were out of russet potatoes because, I don't know, maybe there's a rush on russet potatoes because of COVID. It's toilet paper and russet potatoes they're just out of. But I got Yukon Gold ones instead. Chopped them into cubes and boiled them and mashed them. And so now I'm putting in the essential ingredients, which are an entire stick of butter, because you cannot make mashed potatoes without butter, and a cup of heavy cream. So it's going to make these mashed potatoes super, super delicious and creamy, which is, I think, the way I know that I like them, and most people are used to having them. So that's a couple of the things we're going to mix in while we're waiting for Patty to show us how she is going to grind up those red peppers.
Okay, so I put the red peppers in the blender. My blender that I got before I was married, but matches my refrigerator 32 years later. Amazing.
Oh my God, I love it.
Kitchen. It's the Osterizer.
I love it.
Yeah, no, I got this literally when did we graduate from college? 85?
85.
So probably like 1986, my first kitchen. It still works, I hope.
So here's another thing about me and Patty. So both our dads went to Cal Berkeley, and both of us graduated from Cal Berkeley. So we really sort of have stuck together for a long time.
All right. So I'm blending these, I'm like pureeing them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Sir, don't you love the Osterizer? Stir, puree, whip, mix, blend, frappe, liquefy. Oh yeah, this is working great. You know what I like the immersion blender for that I got, and I will work on it, is when you're making soup.
Right.
You don't want to take the soup and put it in the blender or the Cuisinart and then put it back in. It's a huge mess. That's when that comes in handy. All right, so my peppers are blended. John, are you catching up? Shall I talk about wine or should I talk about spices?
Well, I'm my peppers are still sweating, so you're going to be ahead of me, and that's fine.
Okay, well, let me just put everything on a pause, and let's talk about the wine pairing. Because if you noticed, I'm drinking a rosé today, and you might be thinking, rosé? What's rosé with lamb? So let me pretend I'm not looking at the notes that my daughter gave me. So she recommends a rosé from Provence, and that is a region. Let me grab this.
I recommend anything.
Well, yeah, there's always that, because remember what we've learned? We've learned a couple things in our 8 episodes, that what you like is the good wine. Whatever wine you like is the good wine. And what grows together goes together. So Sid's advice about this is, if you want a rosé, she recommends a rosé from Provence, which is a region. And the reason is, she also says go a little higher quality. If you're going to go for it, you're going to have this nice dish, you're going to buy the nice lamb, and you're going to have a nicer bottle of wine. So it's something in the $20 range. So this might be a special occasion. Provence, so remember, rosé is not a grape. Rosé is a kind of wine, a varietal. And it's recommended because it's light and fresh, and it'll still have the structure to hold up to all the layers of flavors in this dish. And some of the grapes that they use to make rosé in Provence are Grenache and Syrah. And my husband is like so into Grenache. He's always talking about Grenache, which is a great red varietal if you've never tried it, especially if you like Pinot Noir. I think we really like it. And it has a fruit element to complement the agrodolce and some great herb and savory notes. Let's see. I don't know, but I'm just telling you it's really good. And let me show you the bottle that I'm drinking. This is my French is not good, La Chapelle Gordon, and it says Côte de Provence, so it's from the Provence region. So that's your white option. Now, if you're looking for a red, Sid recommends an Argentinian Malbec. So
really?
Yes. She says this is round, has some oak aging, which will soften the tannins, making them silky, perfect to go with the tender lamb. But it has a bold style. So if you've never had a Malbec, this is a big girl wine. This is a pretty beefy red. And it has some great dark fruit. So it'll really bring out the spices and the lamb. And she said, for this one, $12 to $20 range. And I think this is a Zuccardi. And I think that I got this at Albertsons yesterday for about $13 on your pick six, right? You never buy less than one bottle of wine. You always got to do the pick six, right? And that's my tip of the week. So I'm going to tell you, this rosé is delicious. I like rosé, but I definitely don't like all rosés. And I don't necessarily like rosés that are from the grapes that I like. Like a lot of times a Pinot Noir rosé doesn't work for me, but I will say this one is delicious. It's light. It's, you know, as Sydney said, doesn't taste like pool wine. You're not going to drink this sitting by the pool. This will be a lovely compliment.
Isn't that a thing about rosé, is that people think of rosé as a summer wine, but it's actually delicious all year long?
I do like it in warmer weather. And Sydney was actually really funny. She's like, Mom, let's get some rosé, because this is a time of year she likes to drink rosé in the fall when the weather's just, we're leaving summer, we're going into fall. And she said, this is the 2 weeks a year that I drink rosé. So this is a delicious one. Again, check that out. If you're looking for a really tasty rosé, there, check it out. All right, so.
How are we doing with our peppers and our mashed potatoes?
Let's find out, shall we? Well, I added my butter. My potatoes are, I kind of stopped mashing them. I got to get back to business with my butter and my cream. Let's see how I did. Oh my gosh. So I used to make the mashed potato recipe from the Silver Palette cookbook. And anyone who is learning to cook or was a cook that was like 80s, right? That was totally the 80s. Silver Palette.
80s.
And I was assigned, this was when I was a new cook, and my sisters, we must have been having Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner together, and I got the assignment to make the mashed potatoes from the Silver Palette cookbook. So I followed the recipe, and I put them in my little casserole, and I brought them to be reheated. And that day I learned, don't pack things too tight into a casserole, because it just popped into my head, the famous exploding mashed potatoes.
What?
And, oh my gosh, they just like exploded in the oven and made just like a huge mess, because I guess I had them too packed. I don't think I had a cover on them when we were reheating them. I don't know. I just remember potatoes everywhere. These potatoes look insanely delicious. So John, I've done the butter. I've done the cream. I better taste it just to make sure I don't need to adjust. I need to put some salt and pepper in here, right?
Yes.
Let's taste.
I'm peeling my red peppers now because they've sweated for long enough, and the skin is just coming right off of them. And so I'm peeling that blackened skin off so that I can blend these and hopefully not spray them all over my kitchen.
Okay, my potatoes taste delicious. Full disclosure, I did not put the whole cube of butter in.
I did.
I know.
I'm full on the butter. Like, come on. Butter is a food group.
I know. I'm not gonna lie. I think I might put a little more butter in.
Yeah.
I think it's a little more. But it's good, if you are conscious of that. And so I did half a cube, and then I did the other half. I cut it up in little pieces, so I could say, well, I can turn it on. I can add a little more. And
So here's the thing. Last week we made salmon with sake marinade, and it was super light and really good for you, and very low in calories and very high in vitamins and minerals and all the things that are good for you. This week we're making roasted lamb and mashed potatoes with a stick of butter and a cup of cream. And so, it's all about balance, right? You're going to eat like that all the time. So make the salmon one day and the lamb the next, and then you'll feel like you've evened yourself out.
100%, 100%. So I'm gonna get ready to cut that lamb in a minute. But should we talk about the spices while we're finishing up these?
Yeah, I'm gonna blend my peppers.
All right, blend your peppers, babe.
Look, I've got this thing and it works. It actually goes on.
Oh.
Ooh, and it's.
Mine too. Let's see how mine's doing. I love doing stuff in the blender.
You should talk about the spices unless not the sound of this is drowning you out.
Oh. Good point.
Patty?
Yes?
You should talk about the spices.
Is that drowning me out?
Go ahead.
Okay, so what's in this tremula? Tremula, did I say it right? Tremula spice. So it's cumin, coriander, chili powder, cinnamon, allspice, ginger, cayenne, and turmeric. So like super aromatic herbs and spices. So speaking of my grandmother, not only do I have her mashed potato masher and many other things in my kitchen, I probably had some of her spices until not that long ago.
Ew, that's wrong. You're not supposed to do that.
No, but you know,
weren't using them, were you?
What?
You weren't using them, were you?
No, they're like in the back of the cupboard, right? They're in the back of the cupboard, and you're just like, oh, I should get rid of those. I should get rid of those. And so yes, I don't use them. But I was thinking about that last night when we were making this, and I was thinking, what is the shelf life for spices? So I went on the McCormick website, because I love to do research, and it was both. It says, you know, spices don't expire like milk, and they don't get rotten like produce, but they do, when they exceed their shelf life, they're not going to be aromatic anymore. They're not going to do the job. So, but here's a couple of tips. If you're wondering how long, doesn't it sound like going swimming? All right. You done?
Yeah.
Banging around, making noise.
Sorry. So look. So I just pureed my peppers, and there's still a little bit of blackened edges, which actually is fine, and it's edible and delicious, so no problem. And now we're going to mix them into the potatoes, right?
Yep. Oh, there's a black glob right there on the blender. Look at that, right there, black glob. Black glob.
So I'm putting the red peppers into the mashed potatoes, and the mashed potatoes have already been blended with the cream and the butter. And now the red pepper, and oh, that's a beautiful color, and that flavor is going to be amazing. I actually, when I was describing this dish to Patty before I saw the recipe, I was telling her about it, and I thought they were like sweet potatoes, pureed sweet potatoes, because they were orange, and I couldn't identify the flavor of why these potatoes were different. But now we know it was the red peppers that made them that color. And so mine looks a little different than this chef's at the Monarch Beach Resort. Go figure. He's a professional and I'm not. So I may mix these a little bit more after we're done with the hand mixer, because mine look a little chunky. See? Can you see?
Give mine a little more.
It's not. I mean, the potatoes at the restaurant, they were blended 100%. So you didn't see any chunks. It was just a consistent flavor. So Patty, why don't we go to plating?
Okay, let me stir my potatoes, and while I'm doing that, let me give you a couple of spice tips. And if you're interested in more spice savvy, check out the blog, because I'm going to do a little post. We're going to post the DIY tremolo blend. But here's a couple tips about spices. So first of all, generally speaking, dried spices and herbs and spices in jars last about 1 to 2 years. Not as long as I had Grandma Mary's.
Yeah.
But here's
I'm still horrified at that story. Ken, thanks. Making me hungry.
Well, cool jars, you know, like the old, I love all that. I love anything old like that. Okay, so John, here's a question. What spice and what, I can't remember the thing what's called. What's 2 things that you think that last indefinitely? There's 2 things. One's a liquid, and one is a spice that you use multiple times.
I was going to say a grudge.
What?
You said what is a thing that lasts indefinitely? And I was going to say a grudge.
No, we've gotten over ours. There's a liquid that is very common, and then there's a spice that you use all the time. Every day.
And salt.
Salt, and what was the first one?
Honey.
No, vanilla. Who knew, right?
I thought honey lasted forever too.
Well, I don't think they consider it a spice.
Okay, let's get to plating.
Okay.
Because my roast isn't done, but yours is.
All right. Well, I got to cut it. So that's going to give me take me a second.
Okay, so while she's doing that, when you cut a roast, like a lamb roast like this, a rack of lamb, you're going to cut in between the bones. So you end up with 8 or 9 individual pieces, which is really enough to feed 3 or 4 people, especially with this dish that we've put together here. The chef at the Monarch Beach Resort served the lamb on top of these delicious sort of spiced roasted carrots, and the carrots were resting on top of the mashed potatoes. So it was a delicious dish with a little of the au jus from the lamb, and then the tomato tremola on the top. It was really, the tomato agrodolce, and it made a beautiful presentation and a delicious dish. So Patty is sort of showing you now, I think she's cutting the lamb in between the bones, so you end up with those individual little pieces. And you've seen people pick those up and eat them like a popsicle. In fact, I've actually seen them on restaurant menus as a lamb popsicle, because you sort of have this handle and you can just gnaw on it with your teeth. And you know what? That's fine. If you want to eat that way and you want to enjoy it that way, nobody's going to look at you weird. Well, maybe they will. But hey, it's your thing. Like, you want to eat a lamb popsicle in a nice restaurant at the Monarch Beach Resort, you go, girl. I am going to slice it with a knife and fork because I don't want to miss anything. And I like to layer, I don't know about you, but I like to layer all the flavors on the fork. So I get a little piece of meat, make sure I get a little piece of sauce, dip it in the potatoes, and so then when I have a bite, I get all the flavors combined together. Some people separate their food on the plate. I have a daughter that does that. None of the food can touch. All of the things have to be separated, and she eats them clockwise, one at a time, until that one is complete, and then she goes on to the next one. OCD much? But anyway, I think it's great that when you want to do it with a candle, or if you want to do it with a knife and fork. But lamb is one of those things that people, like as Patty said before, either enjoy or really don't enjoy. But the other thing about lamb is that people traditionally think of serving it in the spring. You hear spring lamb all the time, you know, and you serve it with mint jelly, and it's like an Easter thing. But lamb is delicious all year long, and in the fall especially, because as we're returning from summer into winter, meals start to get a little bit more hearty, and lamb is a delicious alternative to steak or pork or some of the other meats that we eat so regularly. Now look at that. Is that not the most beautiful dish ever?
I will say my lamb is a little on the rare side, but that's okay. So I'm going to reheat it later, and it's going to be perfect at dinner time. Or I think I need a new meat thermometer. But yeah, it looks beautiful. How pretty and colorful. And I'm really glad that this is not sweet potatoes and that it's red pepper. So there you go.
Yeah, so there it is. We're going to post this recipe on twodadswithbaggage.com. It should be ready by the end of the day. As soon as we get our pictures processed and loaded, we'll have the blog post up, and you can go and look at that recipe and make it yourself. Hopefully it was inspiring for you and entertaining maybe to watch us fumble through our own kitchens and try to make this dish. And if you really want to make it right, or you want to enjoy it even the proper way, go to the Monarch Beach Resort and order it at a Veo restaurant, because even though I'm sure making it at home is almost there, it's the little extra tiny space between almost there and fully there that a restaurant and a chef can really do. So we're doing our best recreating it at home.
All right. Thanks so much for tuning in.
What are we doing next week?
Next week, we're going super simple, a sirloin steak, black bean quinoa bowl. So a great, easy weeknight dinner. I love bowls. Lots of flexibility with the ingredients. It's just my favorite combination. And we'll share that with you next week. Check us out on Facebook and our YouTube. Share, tell a friend to tune into our show. And we're working on our Dinner's a Little Late Facebook. So you can look at that and you can like that. We still house everything on Two Dads with Baggage, but eventually we'll be moving stuff over there. But right now it's duplication. So they're on both. So thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget that Tipsy Sake code. And thanks to Neiman Ranch and Purdue Farms.
So the Tipsy Sake code is dinner's a little late. So if you go to Tipsy, Tippsy Sake, and use dinner's a little late as the code, you'll get a special discount. And let's not forget our friends at Purdue Farms, because that's where the lamb came from Neiman Ranch, which is owned by Purdue Farms. And you can order that lamb and many other delicious things by going to PurdueFarms.com and find this rack of lamb and a bunch of other stuff. And as a brand ambassador, I appreciate Purdue Farms supporting us. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.